you mentioned that some men get a little bit triggered when you mention patriarchy. And I'm trying to understand why. Is it because you want to continue living uncomfortably for the rest of your life? Or is it fear that because, women are in the conversation, that then therefore now men are being sidelined or something, which of course is not true. There's no evidence of that. But some people try to kind of make a big hay out of this. Say, hey, look, DEI is anti-men. No, it's not. What the fuck are you talking about? But you see what I'm saying? It's like there's some kind of weird fear of getting rid of the patriarchy, even though it's actually, like you said, it's good for everybody, men included.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that could be said, Tim. I mean, firstly, yeah, if we make processes, systems, places more inclusive, they do become better for everyone. That's really clear. And there are universal benefits to designing things in a universal way, right? It's really quite simple. But as human beings, sometimes we do I had to hustle, I had to sacrifice, I had to be uncomfortable, and I had to use those grimy ass changing rooms where it was freezing cold and the showers didn't work half the time. And I got through it. So everyone else should have to go through it as well. That was a defining experience for me. It made me really resilient. And it's like, there's lots of things in society that you complain about if they were still like they were back in the day. All these technological advancements you're raving about, why don't we have the same advancements in the simple things that we expect as humans around the stuff that we do? I mean, reductive it can be, and sometimes I think people just need to take a step back and think that the world's evolving. You can either be part of the change and stay relevant, or you can get left behind. And I think in itself, people react to this in different ways. I think around the word patriarchy, I mean, it's because sometimes, Tim, it has been used in a bit of a weaponized and reductive way. I think we can be honest about that. Sometimes words in spaces have been used to smash people around the back of the head. I'm not a fan of that. At the end of the day, you don't get people to change behaviours and change perspectives by giving them a good kicking most of the time. You actually got to get them to kind of approach it from their perspective, kind of meet them where they're at, and get them to see, actually, this system isn't any good for you, and actually it's stopping you being who you want to be, and it's holding you back, and it's giving you less opportunities. So actually, you should be angry at it, but angry at the thing, not angry at the word. If we get to a point where we get angry at words, then we're struggling, because we never get down to the action to actually make the difference to what we're doing. And the word itself just refers to a socially constructed system that kind of bakes misogyny into things where it don't need to be there, that kind of tells men exactly how you have to be. And if you don't be like that, you get judged by a whole group of other men who are trying to conform and sit in the same box of manhood, trapped because you've got to be a certain way. And the sad reality is that sold us freedom to get all that control and self-sufficiency, independence, power, status. But it's the biggest trap going. You get stuck in that jail cell trying to chase that, never explore who you actually are and how you can bring that to the world. And there's so much power in actually understanding who you are, because that's freedom. People tell you freedom is control, is power, is resource. Freedom is knowing who the hell you are and being able to turn up every day and just be you and know and be assured, confident in who you are and know what you stand for.
Yeah, amen. And again, because like one of the examples I always like to use is martial arts, because I used to coach martial arts for like 15 years, actually, long time. And one of the things that we used to do, that was sort of before the UFC became a thing. So that's like sort of in the very early 2000s. And the idea was like myself and the other guys, we thought, we wanted to create a martial arts club where basically we tried to get people off the streets. And martial arts is not really about the fighting. It's not about the ego. So actually, we were probably the only club where we were saying to people, okay, look, we will teach you how to, to be an expert in beating people up. But we're not actually teaching you for that reason. We're teaching you the key principles of martial arts, which is about self-control, but self-awareness. And people always underestimate how difficult it is to have self-awareness. But also, once you become more self-aware, you become more humble as a result of that. Like, nobody's telling you to be humble, but once you develop that self-awareness, it is freedom. You start to understand who you are. You start to understand what you stand for, which is kind of interesting. It is psychological. It's like people's barriers are in their heads. And one thing that we've discovered, because we had loads of people, like, men, women, children, all ages, and the one thing we realize is like how many people have all sorts of issues in their lives that kind of just creates this sort of barrier in their mind. And through martial arts, which is something sounds really simple, but it's not, because it's about self-confidence, it's about self-belief, it's about trusting the people around you, etc. All of that really made a huge difference. And I always remind people, and I'm going to get a little bit political here, but that was the period, for example, when we had the coalition government that was elected in 2011, I think it was, and they introduced austerity. That basically ended our club, many other social clubs like that. All of these people ended up in the streets again. And guess what? Crime went up. And some people try to kind of disassociate these two, say, oh, no, it has nothing to do with that. I'm like, oh, it has everything to do with that. We got kids off the streets, and we actually in some tiny way, we actually helped them change their lives through these community activities. And I've known people in London that they had massive community centers that all shut down, and everybody ended up in the streets. And now we've got this new generation that has nowhere to go, apart from people like Andrew Tate, etc. And here we are. So you're absolutely right. I mean, helping people understand these things is really important. And I think it's the system that failed them.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me started on that, Tim. Like, in our research that's getting released in the autumn, 81% of the young boys that we spoke to said there are not enough physical spaces for them to be a boy and learn how to be a man. And again, around martial arts, it's incredibly powerful. Martial arts gives you that humility, gives you that self-awareness. One of the big things for me that gets missed is you start with the basics. No matter who you are, no matter who you turn up as, your first day in the gym, you're working on that footwork, on holds, on basic moves, on very simple things that you will build into combinations and build into more advanced skills as you go. But you start as a beginner. And the truth is, in our allyship work, right, we all start as a beginner in having an understanding of other people's lived experiences and challenges. But we're curious. We actively work on those basics. We never take the fundamentals for granted. And we work on those basics over and over again until they become a skill that we can just operate on. And then we can build on those skills. And there's discipline there. There's understanding that it's going to be uncomfortable at the start, being that beginner, and seeing other people who are advanced just kind of looking at you like, yeah, you got a long way to go. And knowing that if you do any kind of sparring or any kind of practice with other people, that they might potentially be a lot more developed at that skill that you are, and you sure as hell know about it when you are. But there's massive amounts of awareness there in seeing how that discomfort that you face becomes your growth all the time. And it's no different than working on those inclusion skills, how to work with difference. And you also, in that space, realise there are lots of different people in the club, all coming from all different forms of life, just to get a shared goal, creating a bit of a community, supporting each other, of just being able to do something that binds people together, and it gives you more mastery of your body. The truth is that mastery is incredibly important because that takes time. And we see how people respect each other based on seeing and understanding the amount of time and effort that's gone in to master those skills. The thing around physical spaces, I think 72% of funding for youth services is gone.
Even today.
It's been stripped away. Yeah. I mean, it's just like all this youth provision, all these spaces for young people to kind of do activities that kind of upskill them, that give them a space to explore, spaces where they're just safe to kind of understand and come together. Like, I've had young lads saying, the youth club's closed after the pandemic, it's not reopened. Scouts, cadets got waiting lists. can't go. Like, they built flats on the field we used to play on, just hanging about on the street. We just get told antisocial and judged, and there's lots of crime happening, kids running around with zombie knives, county lines, gangs trying to recruit us. I'll just sit in my room, and 50% of the lads that we spoke to said their online world is more engaging, rewarding, and interesting than real life, the real world. And there's lots of reasons for that, but they just feel, the online world has places where they might get listened to, where they might get understood, where they don't feel like they're going to get rejected, where they can explore their insecurities. And it's sad because obviously the online world is just designed to create communities and monetize and exploit people. And, young boys are really susceptible to that because they're searching for belonging, they're searching for someone to listen and understand. All the boys that we spoke to that have fallen deep into the manosphere and all types of crazy ass content, they all started looking for how do I speak to girls? How do I get bigger muscles? How do I look more attractive? How do I be successful? How do I build a business? They're looking for boy personal development, or they're watching things that boys watch. Bit of combat sport, bit of football, bit of fitness, bit of cars. And they just get funneled down into that content, and then gradually pulled into communities where they're getting groomed to be sold to in the future. And it's hard for them to see that that's happening. But there's so much there, Tim, and I'm incredibly passionate about the work that I do around allyship with men in the workplace and bringing men and women together in the workplace to look how they can make places more inclusive, how they can learn the skills of allyship, support each other on that journey. But obviously the work with boys in school I'm incredibly passionate about because there's so much going on, and even in our research over the past 6 months, things coming up like, young boys using AI for companionship and AI girlfriend apps are the current trending thing. So there's a lot going on, and that is some crazy stuff that we just didn't have when we were boys.
Absolutely, and I post about this on LinkedIn literally daily these days. It's quite crazy, like the number of teenage boys basically befriending chatbots. And the worst thing is, I always hear in the media, which really pisses me off, when they're going about, well, where are the parents? Where are the parents? The parents don't bloody know. The parents, there was actually a report that I shared on LinkedIn, even on the CEO Retort Journal as well, on the newsletter, like a few months ago, where there was this research that found that parents genuinely think that their kids use AI, all these chatbots, for homework, to do like search online or whatever. They haven't got a clue that these chatbots are capable of basically pretending to be your girlfriend or something like that. So their kids obviously explore. Kids being kids, they have the ability to explore. They're much more, actually, kids are way more technically capable than their parents. So when people go on about, parents are responsible, actually they're not, because they don't know. They don't understand the technology, which is one of the reasons why I do what I do. Is like, I want to inform people about what AI is and what it is not. And people think AI is the thing that it's actually not.
Yeah,
that's a fact.
I'm going to flip that a bit, Tim, and say, parents do have some responsibility. I think the biggest issue
but I'm not saying they have no responsibility. What I'm saying, they don't know the tech. So they genuinely, in good faith, think that their kids are just using it for their homework or whatever. But that's what I'm saying. It's hard to kind of say that parents are responsible to make sure that their kids are safe with AI. But if they don't know that AI is not safe, which is the reason why they need to be informed, so that then they know what to do.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, and I obviously spend this time with kids, and then lots of my peers are parents. There's just gaps. So we're using a typical 40-year-old like me. He's using AI to create an executive summary from some big ass document you don't want to read. He's creating some bullet points to make something more succinct for a slide. Is kind of using it to check some references or put a bit of simple code together nice and quickly, and we're using it as we would do as an employee in the workplace. Young people aren't asking it the things that we are and using it as a bit of a search engine in the way that we do to complete tasks that we have. They are using it like they're chatting to another person. They're using it for validation. They're using it because they're lonely. And they're speaking to it like it's a person, like it's another person just sat in a room somewhere, because they live a digital, they're digital natives. You know, they live in a world where it almost feels like chatting to one of the friends across some platform. You know, they've lived in a world where they got the headset on, playing Fortnite, shooting some people while speaking to the mates. It doesn't feel any different than that distance. It honestly feels like it's a real person. Obviously, these AI girlfriend apps, you design the goddamn girlfriend. You pick where her freckles are, what her eyebrows are like, what her hair colour is, what her breast size is, what she's wearing, what her attitude's like. And, you know, kids are sat there like, oh, frigid mode, what's this? Boom. Oh, erotic mode. I'll have a bit of that. And, I mean, there's massive damage in these apps because there is just no safeguards, no guardrails, and you can abuse them and they just validate it. It's scary, scary stuff. But it's exactly the same, Tim, with parents and influencers. So parents are like, oh my God, you know, Andrew Tate, terrible. I speak to kids like, Andrew Tate, I'm not bothered about him. He's like sat there drinking whiskey, smoking cigars in his bunker. Like, that's how my dad likes shit like that. Me, I'm watching Sidemen, you know, Beta Squad. Like, I've got all these influencers that I'm watching. I ain't watching Andrew Tate. Like, my parents are idiots thinking I'm sat there watching his stuff. And it's just that disconnect. We almost perceive that kids are using technology in the way that we do. And what's really funny is when we were that age, we were laughing at our own parents who couldn't even type an email, had no idea that we were in the chat room with our acronyms, talking to random strangers, you know, that we were using our dial-up internet to pop on MSN Messenger or do some other crazy stuff. And our parents had no idea what we were doing, and they were like, oh, yeah, it's passing fad, this stuff. Like, no idea what they're doing, but we'll just leave them to it. It's exactly the same. We're making exactly the same mistake our own parents made, thinking, yeah, God knows what they're doing on that, but it's probably like how I use it, because they were using it in the workplace with a big-ass computer with Windows 3.1 to try and send an email across the network. And we were using it to do all sorts of things, like talking to random strangers on the other side of the planet, and download MP3s full of viruses and destroy our computers. So, I mean, we're basically playing out the same mistakes that our own parents made with us, and our own kids are like we were when we felt really smart because our parents didn't have any idea what we were doing, didn't get didn't get all the acronyms and all the words that we were using. And kids now are the same. You know, their own acronyms, their own emojis with different contexts, and parents have no idea.
Yes. No, 100%. But this is why I basically campaign for people to be aware of what AI is capable of, because AI is arguably it is the most powerful tool that actually is not designed for a normal, an adult to access, let alone children. But the other problem is, you know, like pretty much linked to everything that you just said in terms of how children use these models online. The thing is, even the tech companies themselves, and I actually had a conversation with Professor Sarah Grimes, so she's like a world expert in how digital tech is being used with children. And she basically said that none of these AI algorithms understand how children behave online, because there's an assumption that children, the innocent kids, they just want to play with toys, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, the way children behave online, it's not like children, but it's not like adults. So the AI algorithms get confused. And in fact, I can't remember if she said which company, but part of their privacy policy, they don't use the term children. They say adults and unidentified users. Unidentified means children, but they can't legally say, oh, a child. Well, define a child, or somebody who's above, 12 years old. Well, then, if you should be sued then if you're allowing 12-year-olds to use your tool. So they're being quite obscure about it, which is lazy. That's how I push it, that as a lazy AI, because they can't be bothered solving the problem. Because it is one of the biggest problems in the world of tech today. How do you create algorithms that effectively can figure out children's activity online. Right now, they can't. Yet, they are allowing children to use their tools. As I posted the other day, actually, a couple of days ago, I think, or yesterday even, about this this startup that created, I think it's called School GPT, and they're marketing it as the AI TikTok for students at school, etc. But then, if you manipulate it, like literally, it doesn't require a genius. Like somebody just from Forbes magazine, some journalist just played with it and basically gave you recipes of rape drugs, right? How to chat up women and all the stuff that basically you would get from Andrew Tate. And that was designed for school children. Yep. I mean, it's crazy. So I think, that this is why I push for regulation. I mean, I'm an AI guy that says we need regulation, and this has got probably a whole different debate, but it's a very big problem right now that effectively the tech sector is actually making matters a lot worse.
Yeah, I mean, even regulation, Tim. So I kind of sat there and looked at kind of online safety act stuff in the UK and how we can kind of regulate more heavily around that. I mean, everything from nudges to age verification to identity verification to thinking how we can, there's so many things that are available, and yet if it's going to make a tech product less sticky or less money or less monetization opportunity, it's like the appetite is it's not there. And I don't think this is the podcast to go too deep into that, but what's kind of interesting in the scheme of things is if we think about what's trained large language models so far in terms of historical and the everyday usage of things, the majority of users are adults.
Yeah.
So it's been trained from adult content, with adults generally being the ones who engage. So it almost presumes that it's speaking to an adult.
Yeah.
And we know that as much as AI has the ability to try and create sentiment to understand its user, at the end of the day, it's not a freaking human. It's some binary zeros and ones.